Hello everyone, Linker here, and today we're gonna look into an advanced hero analysis for Eironn, a burst damage wielder assassin using double blades. They will explain how he works, go in depth into knowledge about him, some of the knowledge unlisted, and lastly we'll look into his role in PvP as well. We're gonna start with his abilities, so first let's look at his Vortex. Vortex has this, so he's gonna deal a reasonable 160% damage to enemies in a cone. Now if placed in the backline, and Eironn will always use this first. So let's just see how this works. The way that it works is that the cone is generated around those enemies that are gonna be relevant for Eironn. So just placing him in with this random team over here, we'll see that when placed in the front line, Eironn will create this cone around the front line enemy and two backline enemies behind them. If placed in the mid backline, the cone pulls both enemy front lines and the mid backline, and if placed in the edge backline, the cone will hit the enemy directly opposed to Eironn and their front line. So the cone has a brief wind up, which means that fast enemies can interact with it. For example, as you saw, Athalia is faster than Eironn, so she can invade him before he performs it. Sylvina, a good example because she can invade a frontline ally before Eironn can have the time to react. Essentially, he can generate his cone to pull her back, and lastly, Cecilia and Kelthor are both invading heroes that are very interesting to remember because they are based on haste, which is part of the reason that Eironn is so good with heroes that buff haste, like Leica and Twins. This ability can be reused on fights, so we're gonna just see it over here. Obviously less predictable than the rest of his abilities and his engage. He also has his ult, as you can see over here, his tornado. This creates a tornado for 7 seconds, dealing 300% damage. This is targeted in an enemy, so we're gonna just look at an enemy over here, how this looks like. So this is gonna be targeted in an enemy. It's gonna be not a filled condition like Arnaki's aura, but as you can see, without a signature item over here, it's not gonna freeze, but just knock back and reduce haste. Now once he gets his signature item, this is gonna freeze. Freezing enemies isn't just CC, makes him so he deals 15% extra damage. That's 50% more to frozen enemies. Know that enemies can be hit multiple times, so this happens when Eironn generates the tornado, especially in the front line because of the way this works. I'll just demonstrate in the arena over here while I keep talking about who he is and what exactly he does. So another ability that he has is Twin Force, his blade imbues. He turns his Ice Blade into an AoE attack, slowing enemies, setting up for single enemy knockbacks with the Wind Blade. So this can be interrupted, and the Wind Blade is one of his underestimated abilities, dealing 15% damage to the enemy current health on top of its damage. This is why he hates interrupting heroes like Athalia or Feral when they are unchecked. So this is another reason to make sure that if you see Feral in the enemy comp, and I don't see it right here, but you really want to pull him to burst him faster. Now, in tandem with his ult, if you keep looking at that damage, this can really do a lot. An ult on itself does an effective 900% scaling and possible 8-second freeze if you bounce it just once with his signature item in an area of effect. So this is going to spiral seriously when you look at his last ability. Eironn's last ability is going to be Sylvan Oath. His passive, a very strong ability to keep in mind because it gives him 50% to ignore enemy defense ratings, 100% if he scales right with his 3 out of 9 furniture over here. It increases his attack ratings by 20% and scales his damage by an extra 65% against shielded enemies with his 9 out of 9 furniture. Now this scaling is absolutely mad. It's going to be effectively almost twice the damage on shielded enemies while ignoring their defense, working on all abilities and basic attacks. So remember the 900% ult scaling if you bounce it once from earlier, that's 1800% against the shielded Lucius ignoring his defense ratings. That's like 3 Safia ults. 3! Imagine 3 Safia ults chasing your team around the field with a freeze on top. How did anybody ever think this was okay? When it was first introduced in patch 122, if my mind doesn't fail me here, people thought he's weak, people thought he's like a Kaz. Well, that's certainly not Kaz kind of numbers. This is also one of the reasons he's so prevalent in PvP. The first ability Endure Sustenance Elder Tree Branch gives allies that are weakened shields, so PvP you're often gonna see enemies with Sustenance benefit from this ability and then have Eironn completely annihilate them. On top, Duros might also give shields to enemies right when Eironn ults, like as ridiculous as that may sound. So not always the best idea. Celis Greyborn, I'm looking at you over here. His dodge is one of the highest in the game. So if you look at the base stat, and this doesn't scale as much with Ascension, it's just very high base stats on him. It's very high, and one of the only enemies that outclass him in this department is going to be Athalia, one of his biggest counters, but he still has higher dodge than her accuracy at base level, allowing him to be one of the only heroes that could possibly survive and engage after she engages and invades him. So much for a counter. He also has a lot of damage in his blades AoE in tandem with the cone, so it does not mind as much the ult cancelling from Aziz in the God comp, which I'll pull up over here. Just the Vortex on top of the blades do so much on their own, cancelling his ult when he has high haste from his allies like Leica or Lorsan that we'll talking about in a second, makes it so he does not need to ult as much, so God comp does not threaten him much. So what does he hate to see? He hates to see bulky carries that reduce haste. We're talking about Wukong, we're talking about Orthos, so those parts especially are going to be hurtful towards Eironn, which segues us into what synergies well with him. He likes burst-oriented heroes by his side, so we're talking about Leica increasing his haste, Lorsan making enemies take more damage, or Gorvo stand locking. So just looking at Lorsan over here, I'll just pull this quickly, increasing the damage on his ult, Gale's forcing, making enemies take more damage together, making it so his pole deals more damage AoE, making so his ult deals more damage, on top of his synergy with Skriath. No, Skriath's 3 out of 9 furniture allows the top and bottom backline enemies to be pulled together, allowing Eironn's Vortex to pull the whole enemy team. So to wrap this up, I'll show you how Eironn PvP meta comp works. Now the campaign, you're gonna see all kinds of synergies, but in PvP there's only really one comp. So we're gonna put whatever here, and I'll try to put something pretty bulky so that you'll catch this. Alright, and I pulled this very defensive set to engage with this Burst Eironn meta PvP set that you'll see very often. Now don't blink, because this is probably going to go by very fast, very bursty heroes working with Eironn here. So take a look and we'll see what happens to them when I challenge my friend Deep Thoughts. I'll put this on ×2. Eironn landing the pole, stunning, the whole team just working together so strong as my team is gonna be. Still, Eironn just crushing through those shields, Talene too pretty helpless and getting completely destroyed. Alright, and I hope this guide helped you just understand Eironn a little better, his PvP comp set, how he works with other comps, and how he does in order to carry you in the PvP and in the campaign. And with that, I've been Linker, and thank you very much.